Welcome back as we start exploring the sixth habit out of corporate Sufi. We're going to talk about delegation. In fact, effective delegation. Why is effective delegation so important for leaders?
So it ties up with time management, self-management, goals. You can't do everything yourself. There's no one-man army. So you got to be able to use your team well, whether you're playing sports, whether you're doing business, whether you're going for war. And so how you're going to optimize your team is the way you delegate to people. And that's why effective delegation is a very important attribute or habit that creates success and significance.
Leaders are concerned about control. Delegation means giving up control. It means giving somebody else authority to do things. That's, I believe, effective delegation. How do I manage the psychology in my head that I've got to give control to somebody else to do things that are important in the organization?
So I'm going to answer this, which will surprise you. The more in control you think you are, the less in control you are. For example, okay, if I think I'm going to control Salim, which means I've got to be on your neck 24 hours to check whether you're doing it or not. So now, instead of being on control, I've lost control because all I have to worry about is what Salim is doing. But if I empower you and I trust you and I give you the accountability and the expectations, then all I have to do is review your goals and see, are you on track, where you're going? So the more in control you think you are, the less in control you become.
How important are clarity of goals in the concept of effective delegation?
So if you're crystal clear about your goals, if you're not crystal clear, you're going to teach something to somebody and make them confused because you're not clear, and so they're not going to be clear. So it's going to be a complete mess. If you're crystal clear, so you'll start with somebody by talking about what are we trying to achieve here. So the person knows what the goal is. So the person also has some discretion to make some decisions to meet the goal. But if they don't know the goal and you just tell them the steps, and if something happens, they cannot use discretion because they don't know what the outcome you're looking for.
Do I have to handhold people to do this?
So sometimes in the beginning, when you're grooming somebody who's junior, they may require some handholding because they're very early in their career. But as time goes by, you want to do less handholding and more trusting. You know, Brian Tracy, my friend, gives an example. He had a staff with him. So one day he says, he gave him something to do. Okay, no problem. He went, came back, everything was wrong. We said, we talked about it. He said, but I thought you said this and you said this. So there was confusion. So next time he would make the person repeat everything he said. He would repeat. Then he'd go back and come back. 50% is right, 50% is wrong, even though they repeated everything. Then he would make them discuss and they would write it down, make a photocopy and say, this is what we agreed. And then things started getting better. Now, this is an extreme example, but whatever it takes to get it right. Give you another example. Somebody hired a filing assistant. So this filing assistant started working. Every 5 minutes, the assistant would say, boss, where do I file this? Boss, where do you file that? And this. Every 5 minutes, she would interrupt the boss about where to file. So the boss would tell her, I hired you as my assistant. Now you hired me as your assistant, asking you where to do what. What was the problem? He never spent time to talk about what is the purpose of filing, why do we file, spend a couple of hours to teach it, and then say, if you get stuck, put the paperwork or whatever you're doing on a file called suspense. At 4:40 p.m. in the evening to 5 p.m., we'll go through suspense and we'll clear it out. So just by doing that, he's saved all the interruptions. So it's how you delegate, and most of the time the delegator blames the delegatee. But the reality is, it's not the delegatee, it's the delegator's fault how they delegate.
You began going into maybe best practices. Could you share with us more best practices? What are some of the things that an effective leader needs to do to delegate correctly?
So the first thing of best practices, when you delegate, never look at delegation as a one-time task. Look at delegation as a capacity building task. People, this job has to be done, so, okay? All they're thinking about how this thing is going to be done. Instead of saying, look, if I'm going to delegate to Salim, I want to delegate to Salim in such a way that I can delegate more and more and more. So while I'm delegating to Salim, I'm also grooming him to become better and better at how he does stuff. So then I can palm more and palm more and palm more. And if the Salim feels I'm pushing back, I'm being unfair to give everything to him and not doing anything myself, The way I would delegate to Salim is first call Salim and say, Salim, I've noticed, that I think you have potential, you've got potential. I think you're a superstar. So are you okay if I start to coach and mentor you and start giving you more responsibility? Are you okay with it? And when I approach it that way, you're obviously going to feel good about yourself and you say, oh, it's an opportunity for me to grow, and therefore you'll be more open to take my delegation. But my goal is to coach, mentor, and guide you in such a way that each time I'm delegating to you, I'm now confident I can delegate more of that stuff to you because you are becoming better and better because I'm helping you to get better. So best practices, delegation is not a one-time task. Delegation is a capacity building task.
Excellent. And so when you're building a second in command, I presume that's the same psychology one uses.
So, succession planning, how do people succession plan? Oh, now I've got to finish my term. Now who's going to be taking over? That's not succession planning. Succession planning doesn't begin when you're quitting your job. It begins when you start your job. Think about it. If you start your job and you think succession planning, guess what happens? Now you have a right-hand person who is ready to succeed you. So if something happens to you, you get a new promotion somewhere else, you have to move countries, something happens, you got somebody already ready. Not only that, but because you got somebody ready, this person is doing most of your work. So you're a visionary, you're not a doer. So having this right-hand person can reduce your workload and make you a visionary. So having the second in command is so powerful, so important, so foundational, not only for your productivity, but also for your succession planning.
Very valid point. In fact, delegation is powerful when you understand yourself better. And I know you advocate the 360 concept. And I've tried this with a friend of mine. I was on his board in India, and I suggested we should do a 360, and he said, what is that? And you'll share with us what that is. But the results of that surprised him. Is it a good idea for leaders to do 360s, and how does that impact the delegation?
So I think, leadership is about self-awareness. Leadership is about heightened awareness. Those leaders who have heightened awareness are better leaders because they are aware, self-aware, and they have a high level of awareness, so they are able to navigate their life in a most productive and most optimum way. So 360 degrees is a process where you meet people who interact with the leader, whether they're their employees, whether they're their stakeholders, colleagues, customers, whatever, and everybody is family maybe. All of them give perspective about the leader, and the leader gets a very broad picture of how people perceive him and what they think his strengths are, where he's overlooking his issues. And that becomes very important for his self-awareness. And that allows him to be better at navigating and tweaking his approach to how he goes about doing things. And but what you mentioned earlier, which is more important, is that to be able to delegate well, you need to know yourself better. Meaning, if you're not crystal clear about what you want, then how are you going to delegate? You're going to confuse people as well. So knowing what you want, what your purpose of it. The other part also it's called situational leadership. Every person in your team is not to be guided the same way. Yeah, and then you delegate to if I'm going to delegate, if somebody's going to delegate to me administrative work, I need to be inspired because I'm not an administrator. But if you tell me to inspire somebody or to facilitate or to coach, I'm at my peak. So you use me that way. You don't use Lionel Messi to be a goalkeeper. I mean, he's a striker. He can score goals, but he's too short to be a goalkeeper. So how are we using our team and how we're delegating appropriately can also be important because, the 3 circles, you're good at something, okay, you enjoy doing it, and it brings you income. When these 3 circles collide, it's your sweet spot. So knowing your team's sweet spot and using it for them makes them enjoy what they're doing, they're good at doing, and they'll bring you income. But that also requires awareness and knowing your team well. You need to slow down, to speed up, and that allows you to be a better delegator.
Excellent. Azim, can I invite you just to summarize for us what is our learning?
So delegation is a very important part of business and life and leadership because you can't do everything yourself. There's no one-man army. So to be an effective delegator, you need to be clear about your own goals. You need to make sure when you delegate, do not treat it as a one-time task, but treat it as a capacity building task. Delegate wisely to people who are good at what they do and use their skills well. So by being delegating in terms of realizing who to delegate what to, and then spend enough time to build people, coach and mentor them so they get better and better, so you can delegate more to. Think about succession planning as part of it, and also second in command who helps you to get your work done and also prepares this person to become a leader in the future.
Excellent. Azim Jamal, thank you very much.
Pleasure. So I hope you benefited from the 7 habits we've talked about with Salim and myself. And they are life-changing habits. And if you implement in your life, it can be a huge benefit for you. It's been a huge benefit for me. They're not easy to make it as natural as breathing and become a master at it. And that's why we're offering this program to help you implement in such a way that you become a master at them, so they can be lifelong habits for you, which can be transformational in your life. So thank you for being here, and we're looking forward to our workshops and weekly exercises with you.